everybody, welcome to What the Flick, Young Pope Season 1 finale. Tim, Alonso, wow, okay. It's funny, you know, there was so much going on that I thought was sort of part of like what I said was the long con, you know, that, oh, he has these opinions because he's questioning God or because he's trying to disrupt the church or whatever. It's like, no, you're just a jerk. You're just a super conservative, you know, anti-abortion, anti-gay, like, cretin.
He's a jerk that grows up a little bit.
True. And
like, he pulls all these strings to get other people to, like, face their demons, and then he faces a couple himself a little bit.
And he's not incapable of change or growth, obviously. The fact that he, you know, that knowing everything he knows about Gutierrez, whose middle name is Alonso, by the way.
Oh,
I just want to point out, and he spells it the way I do, not the way the HBO subtitles do. You know, that he's willing to have him as his personal secretary shows that he's open to having that conversation. I loved Gutierrez's speech about the dangers of conflating pedophilia and homosexuality, which the church has done a lot over the years. This is one of those, you know, and I think the way TV works is that you generally have to treat every season finale as though it were going to be the series finale, because you don't know.
This one ends with the end.
The end, I know. Like, they could totally just like, we're done, and apparently no, we're getting more. So
well, they want to give you more. HBO hasn't picked it up yet, but they're writing the second season.
Oh, okay.
That's neither here nor there.
Oh, I see. Gotcha,
that's what's happening. It's not officially picked up.
Well, you know, I mean, HBO is like a partner in this, but obviously there's a ton of European money and stuff going on. So if it did well there, I would think, you know, who knows. But anyway, yeah, if this is indeed all we get, I think it wraps up quite nicely. But if not, there's more to go here. So
it doesn't leave anything hanging that I felt they promised they would deliver
except for Tonino.
Except for Tonino. Fuck that scene.
That was some bullshit.
Vaiello is confiding in Girolamo, his young handicapped friend, and like he's speaking directly to the audience. You're probably wondering what happened to Tonino. Well, let me tell you. I can't tell you. It's a secret that is just for one.
I shouldn't know.
Like, fuck you, writers. Jesus. One thing I wanted to know about. I wanted to know if they threw him into quicksand. That's it.
Yeah. And frankly, I'd almost kind of forgotten about him until he mentioned it. I was like, oh, right, yes.
You could have just let that one fly.
Oh, man, yeah. So that was some bullshit. But everything else, you know, the Pope very kind of, you know, puts people in the right places. He sends Sister Mary off to take over the villages of mercy in Africa, which is perfect.
Which is great. It's perfect, but it's not. It doesn't seem like enough for Diane Keaton. You know, like they have this big. She's the second ticket on this show,
right? And
I was waiting the whole season for her to have her big scene, and it just never came. She was just sort of there to have a half-assed romance with Vaiello, and like eventually it's okay to call her Ma, but
I'm trying to think back if she has. I mean, she has some good sort of, you know, she butts heads with Lenny, you know.
Yeah, but she doesn't get her big goodbye speech. She doesn't like. Did she help Lenny grow up? I didn't see a ton of evidence for that.
Yeah, no, it's true. This guy is such a loose cannon. I mean, like the fact that, you know, when he finally gives the big speech in the Christmas sermon in Venice at the end, the fact that he's showing his face should be a bigger deal because they made such a big deal about him not doing it up until that point. So, like, you don't see the press going bananas. You don't see everybody with their cell phones out.
They went with stunned silence instead.
Yeah.
Everyone is just standing there, mouth agape.
Which is just, I don't know, something's kind of weird. You know, we do get some closure on the parents that apparently we're meant to believe they are indeed still alive and just unhappy with the fact that their progeny is such a little, you know,
or that was a fabrication of his mind.
Yeah, or he just completely made that up. That's the thing. It could certainly go either way. You know, having him, the collapse felt a little...
There's so many things that this show introduces and like spoon feeds you throughout the course of this whole season, and now suddenly, oh look, he's having heart issues, and here's another one. Like 2 in the last episode, and that was never hinted at throughout this series.
Yeah.
maybe that's a part of growing up, that his heart grew 3 sizes that day. He's finally compassionate.
The young Grinch. No, I think there's a lot of it kind of smacks of we got to wrap this thing up. I fear that there were some shortcuts taken.
That's why when he's speaking with Gutierrez in the garden, and he's like, "No, I know you're gay. I know you were molested. Why do you think I'm asking you? People can change." I was like, "People can change. You've showed no evidence of changing at all until this very moment."
Yeah, it's hard to to paraphrase what's going around right now about the administration. What did the Pope learn, and when did he learn it? Because we're presented this guy who is clearly like gone through these life-changing experiences, but it's hard. You can't really pinpoint what exactly. Was it the death of the Cardinal? What's his not
Spencer?
No, but the other one, the kid he was raised with.
Oh, Dusalier.
Dusalier. His weeping over Spencer and telling his household staff, "I love you all." Like, I don't know. That seemed like a little more of a thing, but then how do we extrapolate that into what happens later? I don't know.
It totally could have been his vision of past popes and saints that appeared before him.
Oh, right, I forgot about that.
What's the wisest thing you've ever learned? And
believe in yourself.
And then that could have been an opportunity to change, but he banal platitudes and all that. So.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the show is trying to tell us, is Lenny didn't have this moment of calling and awakening like Gutierrez did.
Right.
Maybe he's just faking it. Maybe he's just sort of an amalgam of all of his life experiences slowly chipping away at him, and that's why he's suddenly a different person.
It could be, and obviously the very ending, the implication is like, in the grand scheme of things, in the huge, vast scope of the universe, even this man who is supposed to be, who is the head of this giant church on this planet, and who supposedly, speaks with the deity, is a tiny, meaningless speck.
Yeah.
The end. So yeah, this was. I liked watching it, but there's a lot of stuff in this show that kind of felt a little like they didn't entirely know what they were doing. And I think Sorrentino, for his many strengths, certainly as a visual storyteller, I don't know that he is the strongest at narrative. Like, I love The Great Beauty because it's a movie that sort of wobbles around between characters and is kind of about mood and feeling and a milieu, if you want, whereas Youth, which is more trying to tell a story and present characters, I didn't buy big chunks of that movie. And so I think this one was more interesting in terms of looking at the idea of the Vatican and what happens behind the scenes and how it affects people. I did love him telling the kids that it was raining because God was crying because they were bad. More than it is about who this guy is. Like, I did we did get the Cherry Coke Zero callback this episode. That went away. But yeah, I don't know that he's the strongest at sort of like compelling characters operating in a somewhat consistent or at least, given a through line,
So I've had this, and there's a chance that I just don't get it. Like that.
Always a possibility.
That the narrative, that the symbolism, that what Sorrentino's trying to do is lost on me, is deeper than my current understanding. And I've had this conversation with, film scholars and friends and laymen from my life, is if your audience doesn't get what you're trying to do, is that their failure or yours? Does every piece of art need to be in some way accessible to everyone? That's a question I don't have an answer for.
Sure.
And this show has a lot of questions that don't deliver on answers. So, I'm curious what everyone else thinks. I could just be the biggest idiot in the world that doesn't see the big grand master stroke that, tied all of this together.
I think that for a show like this, it needs to operate on levels, and there can be stuff maybe that we don't all get or we don't all get on the first viewing, but you should be able to get to that through a point of it just delivering on a dramatic level, on a strictly sort of like, this show is telling me a story about these people and I need to be interested in who they are and how it all comes out. I don't know that it always even succeeds on that level. So whether or not there's other stuff going on that we may not have caught, or we might not be entrenched enough in Catholic doctrine or whatever to really get the significance of, on a sheer dramatic level, it's an iffy prospect. A lot of it works, and a lot of the performances are really good, and there are a lot of moments that I'm going to take away from this show. But the whole sort of arc of the thing, I don't know. I like that final montage of the sermon where we see again so many people.
Everyone from the show. Everyone is watching,
yeah.
which is neat. It's a bunch of characters I totally forgot about.
Yes.
And a bunch of characters I didn't think mattered at all, like the prostitute in the hotel in Rome. And we see again the woman who he wrote the love letters to.
Yes.
And Rose, who I still don't have an explanation for.
And I like the fact that the love letters make a difference in the way that he's perceived by the world, because he has been so seemingly cruel up to that point and so kind of demanding of the flock. But again, then what? I don't know. I feel like the show doesn't always get from A to C to M to Z in the smoothest way possible.
And maybe not every show has to deliver like that.
No, of course.
I mean, I would be disappointed if an episode of Sherlock ended with them not figuring out the mystery and him getting checked into rehab and then it's over. Like, that would really leave me disappointed. A show like this is allowed to leave things up in the air.
Of course.
And say, hey, you don't always deserve all the answers and you don't always get to know exactly what's going on in his head.
Fair enough. I wasn't sure the show always knew either,
Real
anyway, I'm glad I saw it, and
Me too.
I will watch season 2 if it pops up, and if and when it does, we'll be back here talking about it. We hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching.